Imagine standing on a cold mountain ridge in northern China more than 700 years ago. There are no modern cities, no highways, no electric lights. Only endless hills, violent winds, and the constant fear of invasion. This was the world where the story of the Great Wall of China began. The Great Wall is not just a wall. It is one of the greatest engineering achievements in human history. Stretching across deserts, mountains, grasslands, and valleys, the wall represents centuries of war, sacrifice, fear, ambition, and survival. But contrary to popular belief, the Great Wall was not built all at once by a single emperor. Its story began long before China became a united nation. Around the 7th century BC, China was divided into many rival kingdoms during a period historians call the Spring and Autumn period. These states constantly fought one another for land, power, and control. Northern tribes, especially nomadic horse riders from the steppes, frequently attacked farming communities near the borders. To defend themselves, Chinese kingdoms began constructing long defensive barriers made from wood, packed earth, and stone. These early walls were simple compared to the massive structure we know today. Workers used local materials like dirt, gravel, reeds, and timber. The construction method was brutal but effective. Layers of earth were compressed tightly between wooden frames until they became hard as rock. This technique is known as rammed earth construction. One of the first states to build large defensive walls was the state of Chu around the 7th century BC. Other kingdoms such as Kai, Wei, Yan, Zhao, and Qin soon followed. Each kingdom built its own separate walls to protect against enemies and invasions. At this time, China was not one country. It was a battlefield filled with competing rulers and endless warfare. Then came one of the most important periods in Chinese history, the Warring States period from 475 BC to 221 BC. During these centuries, warfare became more advanced and more destructive. Armies grew larger, iron weapons became common, and kingdoms desperately searched for ways to survive. Among these kingdoms, one state slowly became stronger than all the others, Qin. The ruler of Qin was Ying, a young king who would eventually change Chinese history forever. Through military conquest, political strategy, and ruthless leadership, he defeated rival kingdoms one by one. Finally, in 221 BC, Ying united China and declared himself Qin Shi Huang, meaning first emperor of China. Qin Shi Huang did not simply want to rule China. He wanted to create an empire that would last forever. However, the newly united empire faced a dangerous threat from the north. Nomadic tribes known as the Xiongnu frequently raided Chinese settlements. These skilled horsemen moved quickly across the grasslands, attacking villages and disappearing before soldiers could respond. To stop these invasions, Qin Shi Huang ordered something unprecedented. He commanded the connection and expansion of existing northern walls into one giant defensive system. This was the true beginning of what would later become known as the Great Wall of China. Hundreds of thousands of workers were forced into labor. Soldiers, peasants, prisoners, and political enemies were all sent north to build the wall under brutal conditions. Historical records suggest that many workers died from exhaustion, starvation, disease, and freezing temperatures. Some legends even claim that bodies of dead workers were buried inside the wall itself, though historians debate the accuracy of this story. Construction was incredibly difficult because much of the terrain was mountainous and remote. Workers carried stones by hand, used primitive tools, and battled harsh weather every single day. In desert regions, builders used layers of sand and reeds. In mountain regions, heavy stones were cut and stacked manually. The wall, built during the Qin Dynasty, was very different from the beautiful stone wall tourists visit today. Most of it was made from packed earth and natural materials, yet despite its simplicity, it served an important military purpose. Signal towers were built along the wall so soldiers could communicate quickly using smoke signals during the day and fire signals at night. If invaders approached, warnings could travel hundreds of miles within hours. This system gave Chinese defenders valuable time to prepare. The Great Wall was not just a physical barrier, it became a symbol of imperial power. It marked the boundary between settled agricultural civilization and the dangerous northern wilderness. To the emperors, the wall represented order against chaos, but Qin Shi Huang's empire did not last long. Although he unified China, his rule was harsh and feared. Heavy taxes, forced labor, and strict laws caused widespread suffering. After the emperor's death in 210 BC, rebellions erupted across the empire. The Qin dynasty collapsed only a few years later. Yet even though the dynasty fell, the idea of the Great Wall survived. Future dynasties would continue building, rebuilding, and expanding these defenses for the next 2,000 years. What began as scattered defensive barriers would eventually become one of the most famous structures on Earth. The Great Wall of China was born from war, fear, ambition, and sacrifice. It was not built in peace. It was forged during one of the bloodiest eras in ancient history, and this was only the beginning. After the collapse of the Qin dynasty in 206 BC, China entered another period of political chaos. Rebellions spread across the empire, warlords fought for power, and ordinary people suffered under years of violence. Eventually, a new dynasty rose from the ashes, the Han Dynasty. Founded by Emperor Gaozu in 202 BC, the Han Dynasty would become one of the most influential periods in Chinese history. Under Han rule, China experienced economic growth, military expansion, technological advancement, and cultural development. But despite these achievements, one major problem remained unresolved: the threat from the northern nomadic tribes. The Xingnu Confederation continued launching raids into Chinese territory. These horse-riding warriors were extremely dangerous because they moved quickly and knew the northern terrain better than Chinese armies. They attacked villages, stole livestock, kidnapped civilians, and disappeared before imperial troops could organize a defense. The Han emperors understood that protecting the northern frontier was essential for the survival of the empire. Instead of abandoning the walls built during the Qin dynasty, they decided to expand and strengthen them. This marked the second major phase in the history of the Great Wall. Under Emperor Wu of Han, who ruled from 141 BC to 87 BC, China adopted a more aggressive military strategy. Emperor Wu believed the empire should not only defend itself, but also push outward and dominate neighboring regions. To support military campaigns and secure trade routes, the Han government extended the Great Wall farther west into the Gobi Desert and towards Central Asia. These new sections protected one of the most important economic networks in world history, the Silk Road. The Silk Road was not a single road, but a massive network of trade routes connecting China with Central Asia, the Middle East, and eventually Europe. Through these routes, merchants traded silk, spices, tea, precious stones, horses, and ideas. Buddhism also entered China through these trade connections. However, the Silk Road faced constant threats from bandits and nomadic raiders. To secure these routes, the Han Dynasty built forts, watchtowers, military colonies, and new wall sections across dangerous frontier regions. Unlike the Qin walls, many Han walls crossed harsh deserts and dry grasslands. Builders adapted to local environments by using materials available nearby. In desert regions, workers layered gravel, sand, reeds, and tamarisk branches together to create surprisingly durable walls. Some of these structures still survive today after more than 2 years. Life on the frontier was extremely difficult. Soldiers stationed along the wall lived in isolated outposts far from major cities. Winters were freezing, summers were scorching, and food supplies were often limited. Many troops spent years separated from their families. Watchtowers became a critical part of the defense system. Positioned at strategic intervals, these towers allowed soldiers to monitor enemy movements across vast distances. If invaders appeared, signals were sent rapidly using smoke during the day and fire at night. Historical records suggest that different numbers of smoke columns communicated different types of threats. One column might indicate a small raid, while multiple columns signaled a larger invading force. The Great Wall during the Han Dynasty became more than a military defense. It evolved into a border control system. Officials used the wall to regulate migration, taxation, and trade. Travelers entering or leaving Chinese territory were monitored at guarded gates. One famous frontier gate built during this era was the Jade Gate, also known as Yumen Pass. Located in present-day Gansu Province, it became an important checkpoint for merchants and travelers on the Silk Road. Crossing through this gate meant entering or leaving the Chinese world. The wall also symbolized the growing confidence of the Han Empire. China was no longer simply trying to survive. It was becoming one of the world's great civilizations. Yet maintaining such a massive structure required enormous resources. Thousands of laborers constantly repaired damaged sections, transported supplies, and built new defenses. Taxes increased to support military campaigns and construction projects. For ordinary peasants, life remained harsh. Many families lost sons and fathers to military service or forced labor. Countless workers died building and defending the frontier. Despite the hardships, the Han Dynasty succeeded in stabilizing much of northern China. Military victories weakened the Qing for a time, and trade along the Silk Road flourished. The influence of the Han Dynasty became so significant that even today, the majority ethnic group in China calls itself the Han people. The Great Wall played a major role in protecting that civilization. However, no empire lasts forever. By the late 2nd century AD, corruption, political instability, economic problems, and internal rebellions weakened the Han Dynasty. In 220 AD, the dynasty officially collapsed, and China once again fragmented into rival kingdoms. As central authority disappeared, many wall sections fell into neglect. Some regions abandoned maintenance completely. Nature slowly reclaimed parts of the defenses, but the idea of the wall never disappeared. Generation after generation, Chinese rulers continued seeing the northern frontier as both a military danger and a symbolic boundary between civilizations. The Great Wall would rise again under future dynasties, larger, stronger, and more legendary than ever before. For centuries after the Han Dynasty collapsed, China experienced cycles of division, invasion, and reunification. Different dynasties repaired certain sections of the wall while others ignored it completely. But the Great Wall most people recognize today was primarily built during one powerful era, the Ming Dynasty. The Ming Dynasty began in 1368 after Chinese rebels overthrew the Mongol-led Yuan Dynasty. For nearly a century before this, China had been ruled by the descendants of Genghis Khan. Although the Mongols controlled vast territories, many Chinese people deeply resented foreign rule. When the Ming Dynasty finally took power, its rulers feared one thing above all else: the return of the Mongols. This fear shaped the future of the Great Wall forever. Unlike earlier walls made mostly from packed earth, the Ming emperors ordered the construction of massive stone and brick fortifications. They wanted a wall strong enough to resist large-scale invasions and durable enough to survive for generations. The Ming version of the Great Wall became one of the largest military engineering projects in human history. Construction intensified especially after the Tumu Crisis of 1449. During this shocking event, Mongol forces captured the Ming emperor himself during battle. The humiliation terrified the Ming government and proved that northern defenses were still vulnerable. In response, the dynasty invested heavily in rebuilding and expanding the Great Wall. The new wall stretched across mountains, cliffs, rivers, deserts, and valleys. Builders used stone foundations, brick surfaces, lime mortar, and carefully engineered drainage systems. In mountain areas, walls followed steep ridges to maximize defensive advantage. Some sections reached heights of over 25 feet and widths wide enough for soldiers and horses to move across the top. Guard towers, beacon towers, barracks, and fortresses were built throughout the system. The famous sections near Beijing, including Badeling, Mushiniu, and Jinshanling, were all largely constructed during the Ming era. The wall was not just one continuous line. It included multiple defensive layers and branches designed to slow enemy movement. Fortresses guarded mountain passes, while watchtowers allowed rapid military communication. At night, beacon fires warned of approaching invasions. During the day, smoke signals carried messages across enormous distances. Military commanders could mobilize troops quickly when threats appeared. The Ming military stationed hundreds of thousands of soldiers along the frontier. Entire military communities developed near strategic wall sections. Farms were created to feed troops, and local economies grew around garrisons. Yet despite its incredible strength, the Great Wall had weaknesses. Maintaining such a massive structure required enormous money and labor. Corruption sometimes led to poor construction quality in certain areas. Harsh weather damaged sections over time. Some remote areas were difficult to defend effectively. Most importantly, walls alone could not solve political problems inside the empire. During the early 17th century, the Ming Dynasty faced internal rebellion, economic collapse, famine, and corruption. As the government weakened, defense along the wall also declined. Then came one of the most important turning points in Chinese history. In 1644, rebel forces led by Lai Zicheng captured Beijing. Desperate Ming generals faced a terrible choice. One commander named Wu Sangui decided to ally with the Manchus, a powerful people from Northeast Asia. Wu Sangui opened the gates of the Great Wall at Shanhai Pass, allowing Manchu armies to enter China. The irony was unforgettable. The Great Wall, built to stop northern invaders, failed not because it was destroyed, but because its gates were opened from within. The Manchus defeated rebel forces and established the Qing Dynasty, which would rule China until 1912. Under Qing rule, the importance of the Great Wall declined dramatically. The Qing Empire controlled territories far beyond the wall, making the structure less necessary as a border defense. Without constant military use, many sections slowly deteriorated. Weather, erosion, earthquakes, and human activity damaged the wall over centuries. Villagers sometimes removed bricks and stones for local construction projects. By the 19th and early 20th centuries, some foreign travelers described parts of the wall as abandoned ruins. However, the Great Wall's global reputation continued growing. Western explorers, historians, and travelers became fascinated by its size and mystery. Stories spread across the world describing it as one of humanity's greatest wonders. One famous myth claimed the Great Wall could be seen from space with the naked eye, although astronauts later confirmed this is generally false without special conditions. The myth itself demonstrated the wall's legendary status. Today, the Great Wall of China is recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site and one of the new seven wonders of the world. Millions of tourists visit every year to walk across its ancient stones and experience the history embedded in every brick. But behind the beauty lies a darker truth. The Great Wall was built through war, suffering, forced labor, and sacrifice. Countless workers died during construction. Generations spent their lives defending remote frontiers under brutal conditions. The wall represents both human greatness and human cost. It stands not only as a monument to Chinese civilization, but also as a reminder of what societies are willing to build when survival is at stake. And even after more than 2,000 years, the Great Wall still watches silently across the mountains of China, a witness to the rise and fall of empires. For centuries, the Great Wall of China has been surrounded by mystery, legends, and unbelievable stories. Travelers, historians, soldiers, and explorers all viewed the wall differently. To some, it was a symbol of strength. To others, it was proof of fear. But behind the massive stones and towering watchtowers lies a darker and more fascinating story that many people never hear. One of the biggest myths about the Great Wall is that it is a single continuous wall stretching perfectly across China. In reality, the Great Wall is a massive network of walls, trenches, forts, and defensive barriers built during different dynasties over more than 2 years. Some sections run parallel to each other, others suddenly disappear into mountains or deserts. Certain areas are beautifully restored for tourists, while many remote sections have completely collapsed. Historians estimate that all branches of the Great Wall combined stretch over 21,000 kilometers, making it one of the largest human-made structures ever created. Another famous myth claims that the Great Wall is the only man-made object visible from space with the naked eye. This story became popular during the 20th century and spread across schools, books, and television documentaries. However, astronauts later confirmed that this is mostly false. From low Earth orbit, the wall is extremely difficult to see without magnification because it blends naturally with the surrounding terrain. Roads, airports, and cities are often easier to spot from space than the Great Wall itself. Yet, despite being scientifically inaccurate, the myth added even more legendary status to the structure. But perhaps the darkest legend connected to the Great Wall is the story of the workers who died during construction. Historical records suggest that hundreds of thousands, possibly even millions, of laborers participated in building various sections of the wall across different dynasties. Many were soldiers, prisoners, farmers, or political enemies forced into hard labor. Construction conditions were horrific. Workers faced freezing winters, scorching summers, starvation, disease, exhaustion, and dangerous mountain terrain. Heavy stones had to be carried manually over steep cliffs and rugged hills. Many laborers died before construction was completed. One famous Chinese legend tells the tragic story of a woman named Meng Jiangnu. According to the story, her husband was taken away to work on the Great Wall during the Qin Dynasty. After months passed without any news, she traveled long distances searching for him. When she finally arrived at the wall, she learned that her husband had died from exhaustion and had supposedly been buried within the structure itself. Heartbroken, Meng Jiangnu cried so intensely that part of the Great Wall collapsed, revealing the bones of dead workers beneath the stones. Although historians consider this a folk legend rather than literal history, the story became one of China's most famous emotional tales. It symbolized the suffering caused by forced labor and harsh imperial rule. The Great Wall was also full of hidden military secrets. Watchtowers were carefully positioned to maximize visibility across long distances. Soldiers used smoke signals during the day and fire beacons at night to send warnings rapidly across the frontier. Different signals carried different meanings. For example, one smoke column could indicate a small enemy group, while multiple columns signaled larger invasions. Drums, flags, and even gunpowder explosions were later used to enhance communication. This ancient signaling system was incredibly advanced for its time. Messages could travel hundreds of miles within hours, allowing military commanders to react quickly to threats. Certain wall sections also contained hidden storage rooms for weapons, food, and supplies. Some fortresses included underground shelters and escape routes. Gates were heavily guarded and strategically designed to trap invading forces inside narrow kill zones where defenders could attack from above. The Great Wall was never simply a giant fence. It was a highly organized military defense system built with strategic intelligence. Over time, nature itself became one of the wall's greatest enemies. Earthquakes, floods, strong winds, and erosion damaged many sections. In desert regions, sandstorms slowly buried parts of the wall. In rural areas, local villagers sometimes removed bricks to build homes, roads, and farms. During the Cultural Revolution in China between 1966 and 1976, some historical sites, including sections of the wall, suffered neglect and destruction because ancient monuments were viewed by radicals as symbols of the old imperial system. Fortunately, preservation efforts increased during the late 20th century. The Chinese government and international organizations began restoring important sections to protect this incredible historical treasure. In 1987, the Great Wall officially became a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Today, restored areas like Badaling and Muxianyu attract millions of tourists every year. Visitors walk across ancient pathways once patrolled by soldiers centuries ago, but many parts of the wall remain wild and untouched. Some remote sections are crumbling rapidly and may disappear forever within future generations. Historians and conservationists continue racing against time to preserve what remains. The Great Wall has also become deeply connected to Chinese national identity. For many people, it represents endurance, unity, sacrifice, and survival. Former Chinese leader Mao Zedong once famously said, "He who has never been to the Great Wall is not a true hero." Those words transformed the wall into more than a historical structure. It became a symbol of pride for an entire nation. Yet perhaps the most fascinating truth about the Great Wall is this: despite its enormous size and military power, the wall alone never guaranteed China's safety. Several invading groups eventually entered China not by destroying the wall, but through politics, betrayal, corruption, or alliances from within. The wall could slow enemies, warn defenders, and provide protection, but no structure in history could fully stop human conflict. Still, after thousands of years, the Great Wall continues standing across mountains and deserts like a silent guardian from another age. It carries the echoes of emperors, soldiers, workers, merchants, and forgotten civilizations. And even today, The Great Wall of China remains one of humanity's greatest stories ever written in stone. As centuries passed, the Great Wall of China transformed from a military fortress into something far greater, a global symbol recognized by nearly every corner of the world. What once stood as a defensive barrier against invading armies slowly became a monument to human determination, engineering brilliance, and historical endurance. By the late 19th century, China was entering one of the most difficult periods in its history. Foreign powers were gaining influence inside the country. Internal rebellions weakened the government, and the Qing Dynasty was slowly collapsing. During this chaotic era, many sections of the Great Wall were abandoned completely. Nature reclaimed huge stretches of the structure. Bricks fell apart, towers collapsed, and plants grew through ancient stones. For local villagers living near ruined wall sections, the Great Wall often became a source of building material rather than a protected historical monument. Bricks and stones from damaged areas were removed and reused to construct homes, roads, animal shelters, and farms. At the time, many people did not fully realize the global historical importance of the structure. Then, in 1912, the Qing Dynasty officially ended, marking the fall of Imperial China after more than 0 years of dynastic rule. China entered a new and uncertain political age. During the early 20th century, wars, invasions, and civil conflict continued damaging the country. Even the Great Wall itself became part of military operations again during the Second Sino-Japanese War between China and Japan from 1937 to 1945. Some battles were fought near important wall passes because these strategic mountain routes still held military value even in modern warfare. One famous example was the Battle of the Great Wall in 1933, where Chinese forces attempted to stop advancing Japanese troops near eastern wall sections. But modern weapons had changed warfare forever. Cannons, artillery, aircraft, and explosives made ancient defensive walls far less effective than they once were. The Great Wall could no longer protect a nation from modern military technology. Yet ironically, as its military importance faded, its cultural importance became stronger than ever. After the establishment of the People's Republic of China in 1949, the government slowly began recognizing the Great Wall as a symbol of Chinese civilization and national pride. Restoration projects started on several important sections near Beijing. One of the most famous restoration efforts took place at Badaling, which later became the most visited section of the wall in the entire country. Badaling was carefully repaired to allow tourism and international visitors. Roads, pathways, rail systems, and viewing areas were added. Foreign leaders, presidents, celebrities, and millions of tourists eventually walked across its ancient stones. As China opened more to the world during the late 20th century, the Great Wall became one of the nation's strongest international symbols. Then came a major moment in 1987. UNESCO officially designated the Great Wall of China as a World Heritage Site, recognizing its extraordinary historical and cultural value. This announcement helped increase global awareness and preservation efforts. Historians around the world praised the wall as one of humanity's greatest architectural achievements. The structure represented centuries of engineering knowledge. Builders adapted construction methods depending on local geography. In mountains, they used stone. In deserts, they used compacted sand and reeds. In plains, they used bricks and packed earth. Few structures in human history demonstrate such massive coordination across so many generations. In 2007, the Great Wall achieved another milestone when it was named one of the new 7 wonders of the world after a worldwide voting campaign. This recognition elevated the wall's status even further. Today, millions of tourists from around the globe travel to China every year specifically to experience the Great Wall. Some visit restored sections filled with cable cars and crowds, while adventurous explorers hike dangerous, wild sections untouched by modern reconstruction. The experience often leaves visitors speechless. Standing atop the wall, people can see endless ridges stretching across mountains like a giant stone dragon disappearing into the horizon. The silence, scale, and atmosphere create a feeling unlike anywhere else on Earth. Yet beneath the beauty lies an urgent problem. Large portions of the Great Wall are disappearing. Experts estimate that significant parts of the structure have already been lost forever due to erosion, pollution, illegal construction, climate damage, tourism pressure, and human neglect. In desert regions, wind erosion slowly destroys ancient walls built from earth and sand. In rural areas, illegal brick theft still occurs in some locations. Urban expansion and road construction have also damaged historical sections. Preserving the Great Wall has become a race against time. Chinese authorities introduced stricter protection laws, restoration projects, and conservation programs to save endangered areas. Historians and archaeologists continue studying newly discovered wall segments hidden beneath forests, deserts, and remote mountains. Even with modern technology, researchers are still uncovering secrets about the wall's true length and historical complexity. But perhaps the greatest reason the Great Wall continues fascinating humanity is because it represents something timeless. It tells the story of civilization itself. The wall reflects humanity's fear of invasion, desire for security, willingness to sacrifice, and obsession with leaving permanent marks upon the world. Generation after generation added their own pieces to the structure. Some built it for survival, others built it for power. Some died constructing it. Others defended it with their lives. The Great Wall witnessed the rise and fall of emperors, dynasties, invasions, revolutions, and entire civilizations. And despite wars, weather, and time itself, much of it still stands. Even today, the Great Wall remains one of the few places on Earth where people can physically walk through over 2,000 years of human history. It is more than stone and brick. It is a monument to endurance, a monument to ambition, and perhaps most importantly, a reminder that humanity has always been willing to attempt the impossible. The Great Wall of China is more than an ancient structure stretching across mountains and deserts. It is one of the few creations in human history that carries the weight of entire civilizations within its stones. Every brick, tower, and pathway tells a story of survival, fear, ambition, sacrifice, and power. For over 2,000 years, the wall stood at the edge of empires. It witnessed armies marching into battle, emperors chasing immortality, workers collapsing from exhaustion, merchants traveling dangerous trade routes, and civilizations fighting to survive in a brutal world. Few places on Earth have seen so much human history unfold. What makes the Great Wall truly extraordinary is not only its massive size, but the fact that it was built across generations. No single ruler completed it. No single dynasty controlled its entire story. The wall evolved continuously. One emperor expanded it, another abandoned it, one dynasty repaired it, another watched it crumble. Yet somehow, despite changing rulers and collapsing empires, the idea behind the Great Wall never disappeared. That idea was protection. Ancient Chinese rulers believed the wall could defend civilization itself from chaos beyond the frontier. To them, the land south of the wall represented order, farming, cities, culture, and imperial authority. Beyond the wall stretched the unknown nomadic tribes, harsh landscapes, and constant danger. The Great Wall became a dividing line between two worlds. But history eventually proved something important. No wall, no matter how powerful, can fully stop the forces of history. The Qin Dynasty built walls but collapsed within years. The Han Dynasty expanded defenses but eventually fell into civil war. The mighty Ming Dynasty constructed the strongest sections in history, yet the empire still lost control when political weakness and internal betrayal opened the gates to invaders. Again and again, China learned that the greatest threats often came not from outside enemies, but from internal corruption, economic collapse, rebellion, and division. The Great Wall could delay invasions, it could warn defenders, it could protect borders, but it could never completely protect an empire from itself. And perhaps that is one of the wall's deepest lessons. Throughout history, civilizations often build massive defenses, believing they can create permanent security. Yet no structure lasts forever without unity, leadership, and stability behind it. Even the strongest walls eventually weaken when the people defending them lose strength. Still, despite these realities, the Great Wall remains one of humanity's greatest achievements. Imagine the scale of what ancient builders accomplished without modern machines, engines, or advanced technology. Workers carved stones from mountains. They carried heavy materials across cliffs and deserts. They built fortresses on impossible ridges where even standing upright was dangerous. Entire sections were constructed in freezing winds, burning heat, and deadly isolation. Many laborers never returned home. Historians believe countless workers died during construction across different dynasties. Their names were never recorded. Their sacrifices disappeared into history, yet their work survived. Today, millions of people walk the pathways they built centuries ago. Tourists take photographs where soldiers once stood guard through long nights, watching for enemy fires in the distance. Children run across stones once stained by war. Travelers from every continent climb towers built by forgotten workers whose identities vanished long ago. That contrast is part of what makes the Great Wall emotionally powerful. It connects the modern world with the ancient past in a direct and physical way. The wall also became one of the strongest symbols of Chinese identity. For modern China, the Great Wall represents endurance, resilience, and national pride. It symbolizes the ability of generations to overcome hardship and create something larger than themselves. Chinese culture, art, literature, films, and national celebrations frequently reference the wall as a reminder of historical strength and unity. At the same time, historians continue discovering new truths about the wall. Satellite technology and archaeological research have revealed forgotten wall segments hidden beneath forests, deserts, and farmland. Researchers now understand that the Great Wall system was far more complex than earlier generations realized. Some newly discovered sections are thousands of years old. Others reveal military strategies historians never fully understood before. The Great Wall is still teaching humanity about the past, and perhaps most fascinating of all is the emotional impact the wall leaves on people who visit it. Many travelers describe feeling small while standing upon it. The endless mountains, the silent towers, the ancient stones disappearing into distant horizons. It creates the feeling that human history is both enormous and temporary at the same time. Empires rise, empires fall, kings become dust, armies vanish, but somehow pieces of their stories remain. The Great Wall of China is one of those surviving stories. It reminds humanity what people are capable of building when driven by fear, ambition, survival, and vision. It also reminds us of the cost of greatness, because behind one of the most beautiful wonders on earth lies the memory of endless labor, suffering, war, and sacrifice. And that may be the true meaning of the Great Wall, not simply a barrier made of stone, but a monument built from human determination itself. After more than 2,000 years, the Great Wall still stands across the mountains of China like a silent dragon guarding the memories of forgotten centuries, a structure born from war, forged through sacrifice, and destined to remain one of humanity's greatest wonders forever. What do you think about this masterpiece? If you watch more interesting videos, then follow our channel and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.